About how Americans view innovation policy from somebody who has spent a career teaching us what Americans think, what people around the world think, and more than that, interpreting the data so it makes sense to us. I don't think I've ever introduced anyone before who's been a guest on the Jon Stewart show, but the fact that John Zogby is viewed as fit for Comedy Central demonstrates that he has a rare gift of taking data, analyzing it to reliable methods, and explaining it to the rest of us in ways that we can understand. I was in a political campaign about a decade ago. There was a political campaign that did not work. Some of my colleagues from that campaign, I think, are in the room. And John came in and explained to us a lot about how the world worked. We kept campaigning anyway. John has been, of course, the founder of the Zogby poll, now a senior analyst at JZ Analytics, a best-selling author, a commentator in many nationally read journals and newspapers, and we're appreciative that he's willing to spend a few minutes with us today. John?
Thank you. I'll be brief because I get the hook in about 11 minutes. So I'm going to run quickly through some numbers, and then I'm going to take a few minutes at the end and, as John pointed out, try to make some sense out of those numbers. So here they are. This was compiled by my staff overnight. Based on several different polls, all taken in the last couple of years, and I'm not using a PowerPoint. So I'm right here. Picture these numbers in your mind. Please rank how critically each of the following industries will impact the economic future of the United States. Number one is healthcare at 83%. Number two is banking at 73%. But number three, information and communications technology at 57%. And that then beats out automotive, agriculture, food and beverage, and so on. Overall, do you feel the United States is at risk of losing its edge as a global leader in high-tech innovation? 69% say yes, and 15% said no, and the rest are not sure. Should the U.S. lose its, they're not sure and they vote. Should the U.S. lose its status as a global leader in high-tech innovation, what impact do you feel this will have on the prospects for future economic and job growth? 78% said harmful. 3% said no impact. Is the U.S. adopting the right mix of public policies to keep information technology and other major industries in the country? 15% said yes, 52% said no. We'll head into what is right and what isn't. The important thing here, though, is that on a number of these questions, including this one, regardless of how we define right policies or wrong policies, there is a consensus among Democrats and Republicans and independents that the United States is not adopting the correct policies. So the arguments may be over the details, but the consensus is we're not heading in the right direction. What's the likelihood that China will be considered the world's leader in high-tech innovation and other major industries 5 years from now? Likely, 76%. Unlikely, 15%. Regarding domestic issues, which of the following areas is most important to creating jobs and improving the economy? What you have here is number one at 32%, tax reform. Number two at 27% is infrastructure. Number three at 13%, entitlement reform, such as Medicare and Social Security. What's important, however, is that tax reform came in number one among Democrats, Republicans, and independents with only a few point spread. 34% of Democrats said tax reform, 31% Republicans, 29% of independents. Which of the following countries do you think drove technology in the last 10 years? Number one, United States, 65%, followed by Japan at 11, and China at 9, India at 4. Which of the following countries do you think will drive technology in the next 10 years? The United States, 43, China, 24, India, 10, and Japan, 9. Over the past few decades, economies have become increasingly global. Which of the following countries do you think is most utilizing the global economy? China, 45%. United States, 22%. India at 10. Which of the following is the most important issue technology companies should be trying to solve? This is from our list. Number one, keeping our country safe from both physical and virtual attack. That was 31%. Next, at 25%, making our country less energy dependent and more energy efficient. And number three, improving education. This is 16%. Improving education so all citizens are prepared to compete. Now, these were two statements that were read. Statement A is to successfully compete globally, U.S. government has to take a larger role in implementing a national economic policy that includes incentives to recruit industries and business from overseas. Statement B, to successfully compete globally, the U.S. should be left free, the U.S. economy should be left free to develop and grow by itself with only minimal guidance from the federal government. And of course, Statement A, 41%, and Statement B, 49%. Those are the kinds of numbers that we're accustomed to seeing these days. What's the most likely economic future for the U.S. over the next decade? Number one, at 45%, the U.S. will lose ground as the clear-cut global leader in innovation, but will still remain at the top. And number two, at 36%, U.S. will lose its advantage and take a backseat economically to China and perhaps other countries. There's more, but let me just relate to you quickly some observations. Even more important than this poll is the number 106. Over the last 22 years, that is the number of school districts that my company has worked for. We have worked for superintendents and school boards, teachers' unions, citizen groups, city governments, but 100 school districts nationwide. Essentially, with a few variations depending on local issues and state issues here and there, we've used the same core of questions. And among those questions are ranking of what is the most important mission of this school district. And in every one of those 106 school districts, by far and away, from a list of about 30 items, preparing our children for the world of work in the 21st century is number one, first and foremost. 106 school districts over 22 years, that's enough for me to establish that as a mantra. That's also a bumper sticker. Preparing our children for the world of work in the 21st century. There are no waitresses in Ohio that say, oh, I can't wait till my daughter follows in my footsteps. There's nobody running in Iowa a piece of heavy machinery saying, I can't wait till my son goes into debt like I've been my entire life and can operate this instrument. Essentially, that is what parents want. That's what senior citizens who vote against budgets want. That's what kids want, because part of those studies are focus groups that we do among high school juniors and high school seniors. So the fact of the matter is that there are obviously competing policies over innovation and how best to prepare this country technologically for the future. There are different takes for Republicans and conservatives. It will be more of a question of national security and preventing cyber attacks. For others, the issue may very well be local economic development and the understanding that the clustering of creative people and entrepreneurs in our communities is the answer to grow the national economy. For young people, I can tell you, those in their 20s, I've researched these young people, America's first global citizens, I call them. There is a realization, first of all, intellectually, and then secondly, personally, financially. There is an understanding that they have already left the job economy and are well into the gig economy. And the understanding is what economists will tell you. Today's 20-something will have 4 gigs by the age of 30 and 10 gigs by the age of 40. Nothing is permanent. And I'll tell you that there is an understanding among the young people that I speak to, in clusters, in surveys, in focus groups, that in many ways they're on their own, that the gig economy means entrepreneurism. And entrepreneurism means you got to help a little bit. You got to help me get started. So I guess my mission up here is it possible to create a national consensus? Absolutely. Everybody agrees. Not only these polls, those are strong numbers, but every one of those 106 school districts agree on the role of education and the role of education in technology and innovation development. For a group like this, it's much, much more important than developing the consensus or the majority. The thing I think is missing is the intensity. And where is the outreach? And you may already be doing it. I'm asking it because I don't know the answer. But is there an outreach to every community college president in the United States? Is there an outreach? Right down the street is the Association of Chamber of Commerce executives who treat innovation and technology. These are Chamber of Commerce executives who have their own association. Mick Fleming, longtime executive director. These are people that need outreach. What about teachers' unions? Particularly teachers who want to keep their jobs these days. What about that network of college and graduate students? This is how you create a hue and cry. By building a constituency, by ITIF using its #1 weapon, technology, to reach out and to create those bumper sticker messages that create not the pressure in the halls of Congress, but the pressure in the congressional districts for support for technology and innovation. This group, so many groups in this town have wonderful outreach to the congressional offices on Capitol Hill. Do you have the same kind of outreach to the local district offices? I think that's an important question. And so, I think I did it in 10 minutes. And essentially, if there's any time, I'm happy to answer any questions or listen to any comments you might have. Thank you.
Do you want to take any more?
I'm happy to show. Yes?
Do we have any questions?
Unfortunately, I missed the beginning of what you were talking about, but I'm Nancy Wertheim at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, but I live here in Washington. And John Dewey was my godfather, just to give you some of my bias about education. One of the things that worries me is the 16,000 school boards, which basically are interested in politics and not kids learning. And so have you ever sort of gone in and explored any of that and figured out how we get beyond the demands from the school boards and the demands from the states? I mean, as you well know, some of the states, when those School Left Behind got started, they lowered their standards so that they could get money from the federal government.
Big question there. I'm going to try to keep it to 25 words or less. But I think the school boards, just like Capitol Hill, get a bad rap. I've met a lot of fine, visionary school board members who honestly run for all the good reasons, all the right reasons. Problem is they control about 5% of their budget. You know, basically arts and after-school programs and sports, thereabouts. And the rest is trying to stay on top of underfunded and unfunded state mandates. As far as the state education system is concerned, no fault with any single individual, but it's like a big salad. You know, you got to just take it and mix it all up because it's all upside down. There's this young kid, Khan, out there. Everybody familiar with him? I can't remember his first name. Kid from New Jersey. Why didn't I think of that? You know? It's revolutionizing 100 school districts already. What a wonderful idea. Learn on your own at home and go to school for what you need to go to school for, which is problem solving and decision making and social interaction and mentoring. Man,
You need good teachers to do that.
you need good,
And they have to be paid.
you need good teachers. Lived with one for 20 years, so I got my bias. Still living with her. I'm living with a retired teacher.
You want to take one more question?
Sure,
Is
she's
there
living
one-
with a burned out pollster. She really was.
We have time for several more jokes, but only one more question.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Ms.
Thanks.
Zogby. I feel the same thing when you're out talking with people, the concern. And I'm just wondering, do people tie this? In the last 20 years, the United States has run $7 trillion worth of trade deficits. In the last 10 years, we've run $2 trillion worth of trade deficits with China. We've thrown our people into a globalized economy where our companies can get wealth for their shareholders, but with the average American is being clobbered. And is that out there? Do people understand that the companies can do well while the country is going down the tube?
Do you know something? First of all, let me preface it by saying Americans don't hate the rich and they don't hate profit, you know? However, they don't need to know facts to have sensibilities. I asked them in no uncertain terms, do you feel like you're getting clobbered? Oh, yes. No, they get that. They don't have to cite a whole load of facts. They know it, they feel it. Do they sense that there's money out there? Absolutely, because they drive by it and they see it. They watch the Kardashians. Somebody's got it somewhere. You're supposed to laugh at that. No, there is a sense that it is broken. But there is a sense, more than anything else, that there are people who are not playing by the rules. And one of the rules is the trickle-down economy. And there are folks that are pocketing. Now again, it's not an innate resentment toward rich. It's an innate resentment towards people who appear to not be playing by the rules.
Great. Thank you very much,
Thank you
John.
very much.